By this point, there are two things you should know about me if you don't know them already. Number 1. Indie games on Nintendo Switch are one of my favorite things, full stop. Here are a few videos of me highlighting some indie games that I've done in the past. We support independent video games in this household. And number 2, this video is actually sponsored by the publishers of the game we're talking about today, Dear Villagers. And I don't normally do sponsored videos on single video games, so by doing one, I hope that gives off the impression that this is going to be one of the good games that you should be checking out very soon. Because, yeah, that's what this is. If you watch Nintendo Directs like I do, no doubt this game has at least passed your field of vision. Star Overdrive, available now for Nintendo Switch and also hitting Steam, PS5, and Xbox in June, was one of the games that really stuck out to me during the August 2024 Partner Showcase. This fairly impressive for an indie studio take on the whole open world Breath of the Wild idea, but with a hoverboard and a variety of combat options. Sure, even though the next generation system is a tangible object now, doesn't mean I don't still have some curiosity about a big open world Switch 1 game. Are you kidding me? This looks pretty cool. If you want to learn more about the game, you can click the link down below. You can learn all about it right there. Plus, it's a bit of a throwback, you know, I cut my YouTube teeth on some good old-fashioned classic video game reviews, you know, so we're gonna do a little bit of that now before going back to the big multi-game spectaculars, which we're gonna be getting back to very, very soon. But until then, let me talk to you about one of my favorite new indie games on the Nintendo Switch. Let me talk to you about Star Overdrive. Star Overdrive comes to us from Carousel Games, a small, roughly 10-person studio based in Rome, Italy. They've made a couple of games over the years. You got Downward and Okunoka, I believe is how you say it, before this game here was picked up by the publisher Dear Villagers, who have actually put out a lot of interesting stuff in the past, and I don't know, it's just kind of nice to see an indie studio continuing to get bigger and bigger spotlight over the years. That's always a nice and heartwarming success story to talk about. But alright, the game. The story here is pretty straightforward and, dare I say, fairly relatable. You play as the young space explorer man BIOS. You get it? So it's a computer term, and this technology is playing video games. That's cute, but in the middle of your hot gaming session, a transmission comes in from someone named Noose, talking about some worries that she has on the planet that she's currently on, and clearly you two have a big connection because she really wants to see you again. Well, that's not good. Quick cut to the ship beginning to crash land towards that planet, and pieces of the ship are flying off in a bunch of different directions. And by this point, yeah, you can see where this is going. It's a classic tale of boy knows girl, boy wants to save girl, boy explores a mysterious alien-filled planet to find girl, boy beats the shit out of weird hedgehog-looking things with a keytar. We've all been there before. Of course, in a game like this, the story is just kind of there as a means to get you from point A to point B. You already know this big open world to explore, but you know what? I do like what we're going with here. And I think it comes down to the production values. They kind of exceeded my expectations here. Like, obviously, this is not the most graphically intensive game in the world, that much is obvious, but I actually really like the minimalist style of the characters. BIOS' main outfit is pretty sick, and the voice acting is surprisingly good. BIOS is a bit of a blank slate there. Naturally, he's supposed to be just like the link for you as the player into the game. That's you, that's an extension of you. He doesn't say anything, he just kind of reacts to the moment. But Noose? I really got behind Noose. When you pass these major areas and get to these cutscenes of like these Noose video messages that are just keeping you updated along the journey, I was pretty invested. I genuinely want to save this girl. She's an actual person in danger, and we can't have that. It's not much of a story filled with twists and turns and these weird characters that are going to come in and throw a ripple into the whole operations. Like, there are some obstacles, for sure. There are some baddies that pop up that, oh, they're clearly up to no good. But it's very straightforward, it gets to the point, it doesn't overstay its welcome, it does a good job making Noose a character that I want to save. Quite frankly, for a game like this, that's all you need. And if you really care about the lore, there are these audio logs that you can pick up along the journey that play some extra stuff for you if you want to dive into this world a little bit more. And overall, just a pretty successful means to get me invested into this game. I do kind of wish that BIOS had a few more facial animations, but you know what? There's a lot going on right now. I get it. It's hard to process. But yes, we're looking at another one of those big old open world style games here, folks. We got a big old desert overworld, and on the map you can see it's just filled with a bunch of different markers, and there's a whole bunch of different landscapes littered with a bunch of materials. You'll either find tapes that play audio logs that add to the overall lore of the game like I just mentioned, or a bunch of crafting materials for you to work on your hoverboard. You travel around a little bit more, maybe you'll find some arenas filled with enemies guarding a chest, or you'll find some micro platforming challenges challenges. And if you're really adventurous and you're really daring, you can make your way to these special towers that lead you underground for a series of puzzles to solve based around new powers that they give you on the spot that are totally not shrines, you guys. I promise you. Listen, okay? The publishers immediately, when they told me about this game, were like, hey, this game is going to kind of be like Breath of the Wild and Sonic Frontiers, alright? Like, nobody is pretending that the influences aren't very apparent here. You want another cool moment, something else you find in the overworld? You got these towers that you can scale with a bit of platforming, and you know what? It is kind of challenging. You get a hover pack that you can use to make the platforming easier, but you fall, you gotta do it all over again. You may have seen something like this before, and then when you get to the top, you activate this little pedestal here, and then hey, look at that! The entire map around you gets revealed, and then you shoot off into the sky, ready to tackle your next objective. And you gotta do a whole bunch of this at the very start of the game because the map actually restricts you for a bit with untraversable water. It's only when you get all of the required powers that you need in the first few areas that you will then be able to build the confidence as well as the ability to just travel over the water, and then you can go on and complete the rest of the story. One thing I often hear with the open world style game is very often, hey, if you played one, you played them all. What is the thing to set Star Overdrive apart from the rest of the contemporaries? And well, that all comes down to the hoverboard. This is the unique thing. For one, it's also a keytar. So you're skating around on the keytar, and then you can use that for combat as well. That's pretty cool. You're attacking 1 second, you push a button, and then whoosh, there you go. All in one. That's futuristic technology at its finest. So when you look at this alien planet and you see it's just a big old sprawling desert, you may think that it may not be all that interesting. However, I would argue that with the hoverboard, this actually makes this a very, very fun playground. Getting from point A to point B means that you're gonna be just going off of ramps and doing tricks and accumulating some boosts and just going as fast as you can, and you know what? It's pretty exhilarating. This is a mechanic that just feels good, man. Something I thought may have been a negative is I haven't really found any sort of fast travel where you pick a marker on the map and then immediately warp to it. So instead what I did was I figured out where I needed to go and then I would just skate there. And I had a blast doing so. It's very simple, but man, does it ever feel good. But then there are those power-ups that I mentioned before, and the really cool thing about these is that they benefit both combat and puzzle solving as well as traversal. Like one of the moves you can get is a bounce pad, and what's really cool about that, you place a bounce pad down on the ground, and based on how high in the air you were when you started to make your descent onto the bounce pad, you'll go right back up there and a little bit higher. It's a pretty fun way to do some platforming. But then if you're on the hoverboard and you want to use a bounce pad, you shoot it off in front of you a little bit, and then boom, instant jump while you're skating along and you keep your momentum. Later on, there's an ability you have that's like a tether. You can tether two things together and a wide range of opportunities pop up as a result. It makes for some really cool opportunities with these slingshots. You can aim at these targets with these really big rocks, but when you're on the hoverboard, you will tether the ground that's immediately in front of you, and that acts like an immediate speed boost. That sort of versatility in the powers is honestly genius. It's so cool that they give you so many movement options as a reward for exploring this world. Skating around with your hoverboard is already fun, but these extra options here make the skill ceiling go up dramatically, and it's important to get good at them because there are these speed challenges, and unless you really perfect your craft, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail. You gotta get good, as they say. So yeah, don't think this desert overworld is completely barren of things to do outside of the markers on the minimap. No. You find these little archways, and if you go through them, suddenly you have to go to the next one in a time limit. And this is where the mastery of control of your hoverboard becomes very, very vital. And as a result, these are honestly my favorite parts of the entire game. That's partially because there are these little flying creatures that will follow you as you're making your way through these arches, and I just think that's pretty cute. You also got these challenges where you touch this one blue mystical orb and then a bunch will show up in your immediate area and you gotta find them and get them all within the time limit. This more so challenges you in not only just being fast, but also perfecting your control over this board. There's a lot of sharp turns you have to make in order to get everything done in one nice solid run. But to me, the ultimate challenge is when everything culminates in these impromptu boss battles against giant sandworms that appear out of nowhere. I just love the idea of boss battles taking place in the overworld, man. This is so cool because what you do is you take this tether ability that you got, right? You skate as close as you possibly can to it, you latch onto it, and suddenly it's pulling you along, and then you can use this blaster move that you also got to just blast away at it and avoid obstacles and go off ramps, and you gotta do so many things at once, and then boom, oh, he's about to attack you, and then you can choose between one or two things to do, and you can smack it in the face and oh, dude, it's sick. So you got your power to worry about, you got your control to worry about, you got your overall speed and your airtime to worry about. Well, remember those materials I mentioned earlier? When you find yourself at a safe point, very likely you'll find this little lab that you can sit yourself into, and then you can begin some crafting and customization. One of the things you can do is customize your board and your outfit. That's always nice. Got a bunch of different color options and decals, and because you're on the board, like most of the time, this customization actually feels important. It's not just a cosmetic for your character, and your character's so small on the screen that you never notice. Nah, that board is a part of you, and being able to customize that, I did find enjoyment there. By the way, the board is also sentient, kinda. I can't forget about that. Like, you can activate these things and then have it like attack around you as you're doing other things. Yo, this guitar is sick. I can't believe I almost forgot that. But you can also take all of these different materials that you've been gathering. They're either soft or hard, or they're made out of this alien material, and you can put everything into one little cauldron, essentially, mold it into one of a few different options for your board, and suddenly you're going way faster. You're a whole lot stronger. You may now have the ability to have better control over water or ice. Later on, you also get these temporary abilities that let you do a bunch of moon jumps. You just keep doing tricks in the air. You're flying around indefinitely. It has a jump limit. It's not a permanent item, at least right out the gate, but just this whole mechanic, like the entire game, really revolves around this hoverboard, and I love it so. It's such a simple thing, man, but the loading screen basically gives you an outline on this big old graph of where it wants you to be. Here's the recommended level for all of the different attributes of your guitar to make your experience as seamless as possible, and you can greatly exceed that if you just throw in a ton of different materials at it. And seeing your blue area now exceeding the recommended area, and just, the developers knew that this hoverboard was the linchpin to make this game a success, and in my opinion, they nailed it. This is such a fun thing to do. Now that being said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, it's a sunny desert area, so I mean, it's not all rainbows. But with this style of game, there are some issues that do crop up as sort of like, of course that's a natural thing with this type of game, you know? Like, it's fairly repetitive. A whole lot of the game is just finding a different marker on the map, going to it, and then you rinse and repeat until the game has another story beat, and it says you're done. Rinse and repeat that for a few hours. I get it. The combat, not much depth. The power-ups that you have, it is kind of fun to mix and match what you want to do to make the battles go by a little bit faster, but in terms of difficulty, not so much. You're gonna really just be spamming the blaster a whole bunch, but your guitar does feel powerful when you swing it, so that's fine, I guess. Obviously, there's no real world variety. It is a desert for like 90% of the game. A little bit more of a luscious and vibrant planet would have gone appreciated for sure, but it is the first game in this sort of series, and who knows what the future will hold. In general, I did like the world that I was exploring. However, there is this one like maze part that's like really deep underground, and that's really annoying because then you're stuck to just a bunch of hallways with 90-degree angles, and the escape is so high up in the air. Wasn't really a fan of that part. There's a cool racing segment that you do in there with an enemy, and like that's neat, but then I just got stuck in there, and that was just pretty annoying. And some of these other things just kind of felt off. Maybe it's just like an issue with the launch version of this game. Like, there are some sound design decisions that don't really make a whole lot of sense. There's a big old lack of oomph in a lot of things that happen. Sometimes you'll hit a switch and a door will open and no sound effect plays. Really lessens the impact of what you're doing. Also, the game crashed a few times. I mean, it wasn't nothing consistent, and the autosave is really good, thankfully, but I mean, that's worth noting, I guess. Music is also relatively non-existent for the entirety of your exploration. When you get into combat, there is a tune, and that's kind of nice, but when you're exploring, nothing. Although, there is a music tape system where you can pop in this song that plays, and it's this full-on, like, rock song. There's lyrics that you can follow, and honestly, when you're doing it right before combat, or right before you set off into the grand unknown of the desert, it does amplify the experience, I'm not gonna lie. And if you're feeling up to it, there's a photo mode too. Who doesn't love a good photo mode? Also, I was fairly impressed with how well the game runs. We all know the Switch is a relatively underpowered console, but some developers are able to make good advantage of it. We've seen that story over and over again, but still, it doesn't lessen my surprise when I play a game like this with the big ol' open world with rarely ever any loading screens, and it just works. Once again, it did crash like 1 or 2 times and too many things were loading up at once, but hey, you know, for the most part, it worked, and that was great. At the end of the day, there's obviously a familiarity with a lot of the mechanics and general vibe of this game for sure, but the sci-fi and rock music vibes really make this feel like a seamless fusion of ideas where, yeah, the influences are obvious, no one's arguing otherwise, but it's not so blatant where it detracts from the game at all, because it's all about that hoverboard, man. If you were just running throughout the entire world and maybe you had like one vehicle you can pop in or like a live animal that you can ride on, like cool, it'd be kind of fun, I guess, but just this hoverboard and being able to go over ramps and then you can turn it into a sword with the push of a button, like, it works so well. I had so much fun with this game. Listen, again, major thank you to Dear Villagers for sponsoring this video and wanting me specifically to talk about Star Overdrive, because I'm really glad I did. This is becoming one of my new favorite indie games in the seemingly never-ending list of great ones on the Nintendo Switch. What a great time I had here. And easily another entry in a seemingly never-ending list of fantastic indie games that you can play on the Nintendo Switch. So thank you so much, and I really hope you check this game out for yourself. Star Overdrive, once again, available now for Nintendo Switch, with the base edition at $34.99 and deluxe at $39.99, which does include some extra board styles and skins, a digital soundtrack, and a digital manga prequel. That's pretty cool for only $5 more. And also, there's a physical edition. I know there are some Switch collectors out there who'd be interested in something like that. And hey, don't knock it till you try it. There's a demo available on the eShop as well. But until then, I'm gonna go back to playing the game for myself. Thanks so much for watching. Oh wait, I got more videos to work on, don't I? More content coming very soon. Stay tuned. Okay, bye.